All right, welcome everybody. I apologize again for the delay in getting started. We've got a healthy agenda that we'll try to work through. If we don't get to everything, that's okay. We'll come back to it in future meetings. But let's go ahead and get started. And as always, we're going to start with any wins or challenges that any of you have experienced over the last week or so in your businesses. Wins of any size, challenges that you've been confronting that you would like some input on from the other TBOs on the call. So if you've got any wins or challenges, please share.
So I'll share a win, because Ben told me I'm supposed to. So yesterday was my first owner-to-owner sprint, and I live to tell the tale. I'm still here, so that's good. And it went pretty well. I wasn't too nervous because I did start with a list of people that I thought was relatively warm. I guess it wasn't a true owner-to-owner call, just pick up the phone to somebody who's never heard of us, but it went pretty well. I was able to schedule one RFA, one discovery meeting, and then I have an RFA that's pending because the guy calendar. So anyway, I feel pretty successful about that, and I have my list ready to go for my next sprint calling session, and feeling good about that.
Awesome. That is definitely a big first step, and you had a good start. I'm really excited to see where this continues to go for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any comments or feedback for Tanya, or questions for her about her experience?
I mean, other than that, Tanya, you said that comment about warmer calls. That actually is to have a little bit more background behind it, that you're even more comfortable when you're talking.
Agreed. Yeah, we talked about the fact that all marketing tactics move towards owner-to-owner calls eventually, and the difference between making an owner-to-owner call after you've warmed it up through LinkedIn or an email campaign or as a referral or from a networking partner versus making that owner-to-owner call that's a first contact call. You've not really connected with them in any other way, and this is your really first effort to go out and get them. And as I'm sure you all can imagine, you get different results based on how well you've warmed them up versus whether it's a first contact call. But I strongly encourage having a blended list where you're including some of those follow-up owner-to-owner calls or warmer ones, as well as mixing in some first contact so that you're continually working through your database of connections and trying to see if you can find prospects that way. So
the funny thing to me is that the most hostile call was from somebody who had been referred to me, and I had already had a fantastic conversation with his wife, who works in the business, and he was probably the most hostile of all the calls. So that would have been one that I would have expected. And I know, Ben, you say don't have expectations, right? Don't prejudge what it's going to be. But that was one that I would have thought would have been a much more well-received call out the gate, but it wasn't. So,
right.
But
yep.
I have all kinds of experiences.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing, Tanya. I appreciate that. Any other wins or challenges that any of you would like to share with the group? All right, let's move forward then. So I recently watched, I think most of you know that I tend to watch a lot of TED Talks. I find them to be very helpful and great for sparking new ideas or for gaining a different perspective on a topic. And a recent TED Talk that I listened to, I don't remember the exact title, but the presenter, his name is David Pink, and he's talking about motivators and things and the value of incentives, particularly in the corporate world. And one of the statements, and if you Google the candle problem, you'll see David Pink's TED Talks come up. And so that's the easiest way to find him, and I've got that reference on the last slide here that we're going to use. But he talks about at the beginning that incentive-based motivators actually do not work. So this is, I'll give you a bonus if you do this, or you'll get this reward if you are able to accomplish this goal. He said there's been a lot of scientific study, a lot of control group studies where they've proven that groups, especially with larger incentives, actually underperform groups that they use to establish baseline performance. So there's no incentive at all, and those groups outperform the heavily incentivized groups substantially. He said that what the science has shown is that those incentives actually kill creativity and narrow focus, because you look at a problem very matter-of-factly, or look simply at the surface of the solution rather than allowing your creative energy to develop or show you new options or new possibilities for how to solve a problem, because you're so focused on benefiting from that incentive. So he goes on to talk about what the building blocks are for the new business operating system, or how to get the most out of employees, or in our world, get the most out of members in the work that they're doing. And so there are three things that really contribute to properly incentivizing people or motivating people to accomplish work. The first one is autonomy, and that's the ability to make your own decisions, make your own plans, set your own schedule. A lot of times this is one of the reasons people go into business in the first place, is they want more freedom, they don't want a set schedule, they want to make their own decisions, and so they're craving that autonomy, and it can be a huge motivator to launch into business. But you've probably all heard the stories about Google, who offer 20% of work time to work on any project as long as it's not your primary function, and that some of their most innovative ideas have come out of this free time that they build into every employee's schedule. And there are other companies who've done similar things with similar results, finding that giving people the flexibility to not only work when they want or how they want, but on what they want, can produce some really creative, innovative kind of ideas and breakthrough technologies and things like that. So autonomy is one critical motivator for moving forward. The second one is mastery, and this is almost the lifelong learner kind of thing, where we're always striving towards becoming the masters of what we are focused on or what we're passionate about. And this goes back for me to, as a TBO, the 4 disciplines of engagement, being a great coach, facilitating high-performing boards, being a trusted advisor, and using all the tools that are available to help your members. Mastering each of those so that you're really a consistently high-performing, value-add piece of the business owner's universe, and how that can really bring a lot of stability to your business long-term, but also for your members, understanding that they have that desire for mastery in being the most effective or most skilled business owner that they can be, and leveraging that motivator to help them move forward in the work that they're doing. And finally, the third is purpose, and that's having meaning and relevance in what we're doing, and connecting with our heart passion, or those things that we're really concerned or care about in our own lives, and finding a way to bring that or use that as an opportunity to motivate people to perform better. Many companies offer paid time to do volunteer activities because it gives employees the ability to connect with their purpose outside of the workplace, and it creates a higher level of engagement, better overall employee performance, a more positive culture in the workplace by giving that freedom to the employees to be able to connect their purpose during the work hours. So with our members, it's helping them understand why they're in business, what they're trying to accomplish, and how you can help them accomplish that purpose by working with them to grow and mature and build good plans for how their business is going to move forward. So just wanted to present this as something to consider. I would really encourage each of you to go take a look at that TED Talk and kind of hear David share his perspective. It's great. It's a great, very entertaining talk. Believe it or not, he's a lawyer, and it's still entertaining, if that says anything. So if you get a chance, it's about 18 minutes long, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. But just one of the key takeaways for me is that incentivizing people financially or with other outcome-based rewards just doesn't work, and we really need, as coaches and facilitators, to recognize that and find new ways or more appropriate ways to motivate our members to accomplish their goals. Any thoughts or comments? Any of you have experienced or used these principles in your own?
Yeah, that's a really good TED Talk, and it's a nice summary of employee motivation. And I think I'll show it to my board again. And in addition, he came out recently with a new book called When, and it talks about how I use it with the timeless principle about time management. You know, the principle is don't work below your pay level. One of the things he points out in this book is that all of us have peak times during the day, whether we're morning people or night people or whatever, right? And that you should identify your peak time to work on your peak activities.
Yeah, I like that very much. Thanks for sharing. Any other thoughts or experiences with this? Very good. Well, like I said, I just encourage you to take a look at that. As I already said, he does have some new material that's come out as well that is very relevant and timely and can be a great resource for our members. All right. So I also wanted to kind of circle back for those that have been in the program for a while. You know, we touched on each of these at one point along the way, but it's my intent to kind of bring them back into the conversation on a regular basis, just to keep these at the forefront of our mind and how we're marketing and trying to move prospects through our sales process toward membership. And so there are just a few strategies that I think it's good for us to be mindful of and to be very intentional with in the way that we do manage our prospects forward. And so this week, I'd like to talk once again about the concept of guest advisors and how to use guest advisors in your business. So the first thing that I would caution you with, in my experiences, as I've talked to TBOs and talked internally here with Phil and Dave and some others, making sure that your strategy around using that guest advisor seat accomplishes two things. One, it gives the prospect a real experience from which to base a decision. And that's the driving factor. This is a final step in the decision-making process, and it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you're scheduling immediately after or very close to the end of the board meeting a final decision meeting with whomever is attending as a guest advisor. The second part is, what we don't want to do is give our board the impression that this is a revolving door of people who are just kind of looky-loos and peering in to see what happens. We want them to understand this is a final step in the decision-making process, so that they're more comfortable when they see guest advisors come into the boardroom. So some of the fundamental things around leveraging this tactic is to make sure that before the board meeting occurs, you've spent some time with the prospect. You know that they're serious about their membership and moving forward. They've communicated to you that they just need this opportunity to experience it before they make that final decision. You're confident that they're very serious about moving forward, and so this is an intentional act and decision on your part to give that prospect the opportunity to attend. The second part is just confirming before the board meeting that that guest advisor is going to attend, and making sure it's on their calendar and they're fully committed. The one thing we really want to try to avoid here are people that say they're going to attend and then don't show, because that, again, communicates to our board a lack of commitment on that prospect's side. And if they don't attend once, it's probably not going to be an offer in the future. Prior to them actually attending the board meeting, you want to spend time to prepare them for what they're going to experience. Of course, you need to pull together a little bit of their bios so that you can provide that to your board members. And you want to begin talking to them and sharing with them who's on the board and, you know, what their businesses are, so that they can have a little bit of comfort going in. You also want to make sure that you've decided in advance whether you're going to give the guest advisor the opportunity to share an issue or a challenge that they're facing in their business, or are they just going to observe the meeting and participate with ideas and clarifying questions for the actual board members. I know TBOs that do it both ways, where the guest advisor participates fully in the meeting. I also know of some that don't allow the guest advisor to actually share an issue or a challenge, but allow them to participate in clarifying questions and offering ideas or solutions. But you need to make sure that you're clear on your process before you go forward. And then preparing the board members, making sure that they know who's going to be attending, when they're going to be attending, why you've offered this opportunity to this particular prospect, and what they can expect from this prospect in the board meeting. And then finally, sending out the information about your guest advisor to the board meeting, making sure that they have the guest advisor's bio before they show up in the room, and that they're very comfortable with who's coming and going to be participating. So, you know, I know everybody kind of has their own approach. I know some don't use this at all. Some use it frequently and successfully. So I'd be interested to hear, again, your experiences, and share with your fellow TBOs how you do or why you don't use this in your sales process. So do any of you, have you made the decision not to use this as part of your process?
So this is Tanya, and I'm sorry I'm driving, so it may not be very clear, but
That's fine.
So we were using guest advisors, you know, to our boards, and I will say we made a mistake on our part. We started relying more on them coming to the meeting and participating in the meeting as the sales process. You know, we found, I think unintentionally, we started just morphing to not necessarily trying to get to 22Q, but to get them to a board meeting. And your comment earlier about that it's kind of a looky-loo situation, that's what it ultimately became. And we've had to take a step back and go, okay, no, that's just the final, that is the final close if they won't, you know, if they're concerned about signing on the dotted line. It's not the ultimate objective. So we found it was good, but we're doing more sample boards at this point versus inviting people to be a guest advisor until we've got a little bit more solidified boards. But our experience in the past was that from our side of it, we did not use the guest advisor role correctly. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. And thanks for sharing that. I think that that is a great story of somebody who saw the negative side of this and made an adjustment. And so it's good that you were able to do that. Tanya, how did your board members feel about that looky-loo kind of experience? Did you get any feedback from them?
Well, initially, you know, they knew that we were growing our boards, right? So they were excited and to have people there, and frankly, they were super talked about how positive TAB was and what it had been for them, but ultimately it got to be a real, it wore them down too. It wore them down and it wore us down because, then you don't see the people become, if they choose not to become a member for whatever reason, it was hard on them too. So, that's the feedback we got, is that we just don't want to do this anymore unless they're pretty assured that they're going to be pretty darn close to being a member. So that's where we are.
Yep, very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Tanya, or anybody else have experience that they'd like to share?
The main thing that I've learned is to get them to commit to a follow-up meeting before they go in as guest advisors, because I've occasionally had a really hard time pinning them down afterwards. And what I've also seen is that some people request to come in to as a guest advisor. They want to check out the board. They're very curious about this board thing. And so as long as they're relatively serious, I let them, but I've got to do better on pinning them down on the follow-up meeting prior to the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and I've heard this many times, the biggest challenge if you don't get that meeting scheduled is you end up going into chase mode and trying to figure out, if they're still interested or not. And it can be very frustrating and time-consuming to chase them down. So I appreciate that, Valerie, and thanks for sharing.
Ben?
Yes.
It's Chris White.
Yes, go, Chris. Thanks.
We approach the recruiting a little bit different, but it's a luxury of time, I guess. But we share the responsibility with our members for membership recruitment. So when we do bring somebody as a guest advisor in, the board understands that they are an unsigned commitment. So we enlist their help in the close. So at the start of a meeting, you'll find our members, and this is not agenda items, and it's not prompted by me, they just do it. One or more of the members will address the guest advisor and ask them what do they want to accomplish from TAB, why they're interested in TAB. They'll ask them what they want to try and accomplish in this meeting. And many times they'll ask them about, just how serious are you about TAB? But at the close of the meeting, they'll usually take a 10 or 15-minute period prior to the close and go into kind of a closing mode. What did you think of the meeting? On a scale of 1 to 10. I mean, it's the same type of close that we would do, but they're better at it.
Right.
And it's a difference, if they're closing, it's because they can readily admit, we want somebody on this board that will participate, and you've shown during this meeting that you're that type of person. Well, hell, I mean, how can they not sign?
Right. Absolutely. And for those that don't know, Chris has been a TBO since 1996, so he's got a wealth of knowledge and expertise to help us understand and leverage some of these ideas. So he's definitely a resource that we can turn to and learn from. So having a strategy not only for recruitment that actively engages your members in the process, but then, as you described, Chris, involving them. I love the phrase that you used, that they understand that the guest advisor is an unsigned commitment. I really like that. And then allowing them to ask questions around, why are you interested in TAB? what's your purpose for being here, and things like that. I really like that a lot.
We're one of those that pretty well force the new member to bring an issue. We do a private session with them prior to the meeting. They sign the confidentiality agreement. We give them the tabs, 2-page preparing for your first meeting handout. We get on the phone with them. Many times we'll actually go call on them, or they'll come to the office, and we'll spend the time getting them prepared so that they're as close to being, a signed member as we can possibly get them.
Yeah, I like that. It's a little bit of time commitment on the front side, and but the payoff, I think, as you've communicated, is much greater because they can fully participate, and they demonstrate to the other board members, what they're going to be like and how they're going to be as a board member.
We follow that same process on sample board meetings too.
Oh, okay. Anybody have any questions for Chris or comments about his process or anything that you'd like to share about how you use guest advisors?
They don't, Chris. They don't mind being pulled in. They don't. They don't feel like you're relegating your sales role to them.
I'm sorry. Say again.
How do you get your members to do that?
That's a part of our recruiting. The first thing the second thing they sign after they've signed the membership agreement is an approval for us to use the fact that they are a TAB member in the marketing. And I noticed that Ben had LinkedIn membership. First thing we do is we gain access to their LinkedIn accounts if they're on LinkedIn, or try and get them to go on LinkedIn if they're not, so that we can see with them in private sessions. We'll go through members and discuss which of their people do they really know, which is kind of a problem in LinkedIn, and which of their people that are on LinkedIn might be a potential candidate. So we really kind of lead them into it. But after they've been a member, our average tenure is probably about 16, 17, 18 years. And so once they've been in the boards pretty much run themselves. I don't have to really facilitate. We've got 3 of us that do this, and none of us really have to run the boards. The boards are comfortable enough with each other and with the monthly process that in fact, the less involvement we have, oftentimes, the better the board meeting.
Okay, let me put this differently. For somebody who hasn't been doing this 20 plus years, how do you suggest I implement this?
Well, I think one step is to ask them to share with you who their LinkedIn people are, or who their vendor list is, or their customer list, or which are 2 of the favorite areas. Members are less likely to early on to refer friends. After they've been in for a while, they'll refer friends, but they're much more likely to refer customers and especially vendors, that need the help. Critical vendor lists and people that are not as effective in running their business as they should be are a particular target of ours. And you only really have to get it done once. We usually reward the members, David Pink to notwithstanding, in that I'll usually give them a gift certificate to one of the nicer restaurants. And there are 2 or 3 of them that we have close enough relationships with. I can just kind of give them an open check. They'll just send me the bill. And I don't offer that as a listed perk, but once somebody does it, I will, we'll certainly try and take care of them in some fashion. as a part of the referral. We don't pay referral fees per se to anybody, but but it's like any other behavior. If you want them to do it a second time, you show them your appreciation after they've done it the first time. Now, we do have members that simply don't have the networks. They're mostly engineers or accountants, but they don't have the networks that we need for them to refer heavily to us. But if they can't refer to us, they can at least introduce us to their attorney, if it's somebody we don't know, or introduce us to their accountant, if it's somebody we don't know, and we can use them as a part of our referral network. So it's either directly from the member or using them on an indirect basis. I also just would suggest talking to the board about it. Anytime we have an issue that relates to one of our boards, how do we get the board to do this? How do we get the board to do that? We'll take a few minutes in a board meeting and talk about it. They certainly do the same with us. If we're doing something that they don't want us to do anymore, I had one of my boards, and about 10 years ago, we started using TED videos, and David Pinks was one of the first ones that we used. And we did that for a while, and it was great for me because it was a buffer at the start of the meeting because nobody was ever on time. So we could start the video on time, and then by the time the video was over, people had usually dragged in. And after a while, they came back and said, we don't want any more of those videos, or if we do see a video, only every now and then. We're tired of watching videos. So we didn't use them for several years on that particular board.
Yeah, Valerie, one of the things that I would recommend is, just setting expectation. If you've not been doing it in the past, you have to kind of draw a line in the sand and set a new expectation going forward. So it's, as Chris said, just communicating to the board. This is where, I'd like to see us begin to move. I really, really love the idea of encouraging your members to make referrals for vendors or suppliers or, strategic partners that they have that they feel should learn more about TAB, and emphasizing the value and building strength in the business community with those that we do business with. And one of the key ways to do that is through TAB membership. And I think that is a great starting point for beginning to build this culture into your boards, and then just over time, revalidating or restating that this is the expectation that you all are providing referrals to build the strength of this board, identifying people who you feel should learn more about TAB so that I can go and make sure that they're a good fit for the board. And then, finding the right incentive approach behind that to reward the behavior that you want in the right way. So I think anytime we're making a change in our strategy with our boards, it's just a matter of determining what we're going to do going forward and then reinforcing that continuously until it becomes the norm.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
This is Rick Powell. I have a quick question for you on that second document you referred to. Is it basically a release to allow you to use them in your marketing materials, or
yes?
What is there more involved in that? Or, pardon?
Yeah, it's a very simple one sentence release.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there's more to that or not. I like that idea.
The less the better, because the more you put in, the more you're restricted in how you use it. For example, you go to our consulting website, and all of our TAB members are listed. And you go to the TAB website, and all of our TAB members are listed. When we're recruiting and sitting down with the recruit, I give them a list of all of our members, organized by board, so they can see which boards. And rarely do they know more than one or two, but that gives them an immediate, you want to go talk to some of these people, just let me know. You choose them, I'll set it up. And so that way they have somebody that they can actually get on the phone with and talk to for a, in our case, it's always going to end up being a a positive kind of a witness to what they've been experiencing as a tab member.
Awesome. I like it. Thank you.
Very good. Any other experiences or any additional questions for Chris and how he does this? Excellent. Well, thank you, Chris, for sharing your experience. Also, thank you, Tanya, for sharing your learning and how you've modified your process. And thank you, Valerie, for your comments about making sure that you pin people down after that guest advisor seat more effectively going forward. I think all of our marketing tactics can be enhanced and improved upon as we gain experience and as each of us kind of go into the marketplace and use some of these, bringing back that learning and sharing with the community what has worked, what needs to be changed, or what didn't work is very valuable and will help us all grow in our tab businesses. So thanks for the conversation. I think it was excellent. So let's move forward. Just to highlight, so these are the 6 topics that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks. We will talk more about LinkedIn member connections, about the board meeting ask, about referral testimonials, about using strategic partners, and the circle of influence ask. So we'll touch back on some of these over the next few weeks. If you've got any experiences or strategies that you've used, be thinking about those, and hopefully we can all learn and grow together as a community. All right, let's move on to the round robin question for this week, or statement, I guess, discussion. This week, the statement is, and some of you have heard me talk about this in our one-to-one coaching sessions, but what is one thing I can do today that my future self will thank me for? And the concept behind this is simply every day finding one additional activity, one additional step, one additional thing that I can do that's beyond or outside of my normal routine or my normal to-do list, or beyond what I've already accomplished today, that will bring me value and benefit going forward, so that as I look back and I do this consistently, every day I'm adding value for the future of my business and in just my life overall. So that's the motivation behind this question. And as we go through, we will each share our results. And I'll just go down the list and ask you to share yours. So Mike Brown, why don't we start with you? What's one thing you can do today that your future self will thank you for?
I would say taking large tasks and breaking them down and doing the next best thing, really putting one foot in front of the other, keep moving ahead.
Very good. I like that. And if you do that consistently every day, I think your future self will be very grateful. How about next up, we will go to Valerie. Valerie, what's one thing you can do today that your future self will thank you for?
One thing that I should do that I've been avoiding like the plague is bookkeeping. Because my monthly income statements piss me off so badly that I can't stand to look at them. But I should force myself to look at them and to enter them and to analyze them and keep up on my bookkeeping better, so that I know my financial position. And I say this in a very low, slow voice because I do not want to do it.
I appreciate that very much, and I empathize and understand exactly how that feels and where you're at. But I do think that that is something that can not only benefit you, but can be a driving factor in moving forward with your business.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, Chris.
Think about the TAB members that also feel exactly the way you do, and how much benefit to them if you took the opportunity to use your own business as a way of learning how to quickly look at financial statements and be able to evaluate whether or not they're going in the general direction that they need to be. That's probably one of the most valuable things we can do for our TAB members, because they rarely have substantial enough banking relationships to get that from a bank. They also rarely have a paid month-by-month tax advisor who can sit down with them and say, have you looked at your balance sheet in a while? So that's a critical part of our relationship with our TAB members. It's easy for me because I'm a certified public accountant, and I had been taught in school how to do all these things, but there are some fairly simple, straightforward financial analysis things that bankers do, and if bankers can learn to do them, we can.
Absolutely.
My MBA is in finance and accounting, Chris. The question is not, the issue is not one of.
So you got the skill set.
Inability. Yeah, the issue is one of avoidance.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, my solution is I have my wife has been my business partner for the last 29, 30 years. And she takes care of all of that, and so I can't avoid it. I sleep with my bookkeeper, so.
I could go in so many different directions right now.
That's always been a favorite line of mine. One of my first members, when I went to call on him, his secretary showed me in his office, and as soon as she left after serving coffee, he looked at me, got a very sly look on his face, and he said, I'm sleeping with her. And unfortunately, I didn't rise to the bait. Because then in the next sentence, he said, well, that's because I'm married to her.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Chris, what's your response to one thing you can do today that your future self will thank you for?
You know, I kind of reduced, my planning horizon is substantially different. At 72, I should have retired probably several years ago. But currently, I'm using the next level program as that one thing I'll thank myself for 5 years from now. If I look back over the time period from 94 when I started on a marketing agreement, and then 96 when we went to the franchise, forward, the one thing that I always forced myself to do because of the benefits that I got out of it is go to the annual conference. That is the most renewing experience. And I've missed, I went in 15, missed 16, missed 17, and I'll miss this year because of surgeries and whatnot. But I'll be there in 18, and I mean in 19. And that is just such it's such an expanding opportunity, and it's one that you get back and you want to work hard. It wears off after maybe 4 or 5 months, which is why you need to look forward to going to the next one, because there's always things to learn. There's always new people to meet, and their enthusiasm for what we do is very infective. So that's the one thing I would suggest for others is every single opportunity you have to interact, whether it's peer board meetings or the annual meeting, or we used to have regional meetings. We'd get together with facilitators in our region and go off and meet and have our own retreats.
Yep. Well, good. Thanks for sharing, and I'm glad to be on this journey with you, and I hope we can both look back and think our future selves will be able to thank us for working together. That's awesome. Rick, how about you? What's one thing you can do today?
I'm going to go with continue to educate myself on becoming learning and becoming an effective fanatical prospector. And by doing so, I need to change some mindset stuff. And then after that, I need to start working on making sure I have a good balanced prospecting methodology consistently. And yes, I'm pulling that right out of a book recommended to me by a world-class business coach. But I think it's going to be really good for me, and it's spot on to what I need to do. So that's it.
Very good. How about you, Tanya?
Okay, so mine isn't going to sound business. It's to make good eating and healthy eating choices, because I know when I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough mental focus, things like that, when I'm trying to do the things I need to do to move my business forward. So.
And I actually believe that is definitely a business priority, because in my experience, self-care is probably one of the most neglected components of a business owner's life, because they're so focused on moving the business forward and taking care of everything around them that they often ignore or neglect taking care of themselves. So I think that's an excellent priority, and congratulate you for thinking about that. How about you, Mr. Grover?
Yeah, I want to echo your statement to Tanya. Tanya, if you are unhealthy and aren't there in the future, you can't thank yourself. So yeah, that's a great focus for right now. And I'm on the same bandwagon as well. So thinking about my health is important. However, my answer is actually more like an Isaac Asimov kind of answer. Is one thing I can do today that my future self will thank me for is to think of my future self while I do today what I need to do for my future. So it's kind of a do loop, but I need to be thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish as I do it, because sometimes I lose motivation, and I need to think of myself in the future and what I want to see there, so that I am there to thank myself for what I did today for then, if you know what I mean.
I gotcha. I actually really like that. I like it
What?
so much. I like it so much I typed it out.
You did not. That was too occluded. There's no way you got that.
I got a couple of responses online from the juries who weren't able to be here today because they are on vacation. So Steve's response was that he is going to commit 100% to building the business, to do whatever it takes, and take courageous moves that many other business people will not take. I really like the last part of that, the courageous moves piece. I think that is outstanding. And Laura's response was to learn from her experiences going forward. I wish my kids would adopt that one instead of the principle of just repeating mistakes over and over again. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for sharing, and I really value your input on these questions. I find it very insightful to see where you're each at, and hopefully you can learn from each other that in many regards we're all on the same journey, just at different places along the journey, and that together we are stronger than we are individually. And so that's one of the reasons I really value these calls. I value your participation in these calls because you are the ones that make this a meaningful time for me. So thank you very much for your participation today. We will convene again next week at the same time and continue forward. In the meantime, for those that are available, we will be having another owner-to-owner sprint call this afternoon beginning at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 12 p.m. Pacific. If you're available to participate, we would love to have you on the call. With that, we'll wrap it up. Have a great Thursday afternoon and a fantastic end to your week. And thanks for your participation today.
Thanks,
everybody.
Ben,
Bye,
thanks.
everybody. Have a good day.